Hello and welcome to this week's thrilling instalment of the top 100 artists of all time, according to me. Doves are this week's entry, another sort of Manchester band. According to Wikipedia, the go-to source of all knowledge, Dove's genre of music is future soul. Does anybody know what future soul even is? I don't. According to James Saw, Doves are indie. That's not to say they don't have elements of soul within their sound. They certainly do. But the bottom line is, whatever genre you think they are, they have always made damned fine music. Essentially, it might be slightly different when we talk, but essentially, Doves are a trio. Jimmy Goodwin is lead vocalist and bass guitarist, and is joined by the Williams twins, Jez, guitar, and Andy, drums. Martin Rebelski plays keyboards on most of the records, though, and tours with the band, but they've never honoured him with full membership of the band. Type bastards. I've read that the band met each other at Wilmslow High School, a claim I slightly challenge because surely the twins met each other long before Wilmslow High School, but I get the point. They met at school. Wilmslow, for those who don't know, is a desirable town just 10 miles away from Manchester. They were all interested in music in those days, but they weren't all in the same band. They formed a band together after a chance encounter at Manchester's go-to nightclub, the Hacienda, in 1989, the legendary Hacienda. Like many in or around Manchester in that era, they jumped on the Madchester bandwagon, get it? Madchester, and formed a dance group, Sub Sub. They made a reasonable living for a few years. They weren't massively successful, but they ticked over nicely. Their first single was Space Face in 91, but then, out of the blue in 1993, a hit, a big hit, the biggest hits actually, still, that the lads have had. Ain't No Love, Ain't No Use made number 3 in the charts in 1993. It had guest vocals from Melanie Williams. I don't think Melanie is, however, related to Jez Williams or Andy Williams. But it was a splendid dance anthem. Allegedly, they spent most of the next year spending the money they made on the hit on Manchester's nightlife, and when they did get back into the studio, subsequent releases failed to match the song's success. In February 96, the twins had a birthday to forget when their recording studio burnt down. But perhaps it was a burning in disguise, because their career as a dance act had stalled anyway, so they took the opportunity to take stock. They wiped the slate clean and reinvented themselves as a more rock-orientated band. And they also resolved to try a bit harder, work a bit harder to come up with the best music they possibly could. Officially, Doves were formed in 1998. In 98 and 99, they issued 3 EPs, which were well received. But their debut album, Lost Souls, was released in 2000 and was honoured with a nomination for that year's Mercury Prize. In fact, a Manchester act did win the Mercury Prize that year. It just wasn't them, it was Bandy Drawn Boy, who had, ironically, been a former collaborator with Doves. But Lost Souls sold more than Sub's LP had, peaked at number 16 and produced 3 singles which made the lower reaches of the top 40. Starting with the 7.5-minute Cedar Room, it was slower, more thoughtful music than Sub, and you'd struggle to dance to it. Me, I'd struggle to dance to anything, but that's another story. But from their experience as a dance band, they did bring a mastery of electronic textures and varied rhythms to blend with their guitars. It was emotional, it was passionate. Their second album, 2 years later, in 2002, The Last Broadcast, was more the same, but slightly better. They'd moved on, they'd improved. It went to number 1. It got another Mercury Prize nomination, and the lead-off single, There Goes the Fear, actually made number 3 in the charts. It was a false position, though, to be honest, because they had a very weird sales technique of deleting the single after one day. So overall sales, of course, suffered. But on the one day it was on sale, it was always likely to do very well. The second single, Pounding, might actually be the best thing Doves have ever done, and reached number 21 by conventional means. As a piece of music, it has been widely used in TV segments, notably during the 2010 Winter Olympics. Ironically, the third album was called Some Cities. It's ironic because to record the album, they moved away from the city and used a variety of rural beauty spots such as Loch Ness and Snowdonia. The lead-off single, Black and White Town, went to number 6 with no gimmicks needed to get it there. It got good reviews, typically good reviews, and went to number 1. Live, they weren't an arena band, but they were big enough to play in arenas supporting U2, Oasis and Coldplay. There was a bit of a gap before the fourth album, Kingdom of Rust, came out in 2009. Perhaps the delay was ominous, but there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't think Kingdom of Rust is quite as strong an album as the previous 3. The band confessed it had been a more difficult album to make, and their own relationships were more fractious than before. The critics still liked it though. It still made number 2, but the band felt they'd come to the end of a natural cycle. So, after a successful tour and festival appearances, Doves announced they would go on hiatus. And what a long hiatus it was. In the intervening years, Jimmy Goodwin has released well-received solo albums and supported Elbow, his mates with Guy Garvey, which is ironic because I think Doves led the way for Elbow, and when Elbow went massive, winning Brits and what have you, personally I thought the world had chosen the wrong sophisticated indie band from Manchester to make stars. It should have been Doves. There was talk of a joint record. It never happened. The Williamson twins formed a band called Black Rivers and recorded an album too, but neither the Williamson twins nor Jimmy Goodwin were as successful apart as they had been together in Doves, and they tentatively got back together in 2018. Their first public venture was a one-off gig at the Royal Albert Hall in March 2019, for charity. It must have involved a lot of work for just one gig. Surely there would be more, we thought. And yes, they did do the festival circuit that year, plus dates with Noel Gallagher. Most exciting of all, they went back into the studio. The fifth album, the Universal One, came out in 2020 in the midst of a COVID endemic. They probably should be touring it now, but of course circumstances mean that it's impossible. Bad news for Doves. It's too early for me to determine which tracks will stand the test of time. It does offer the trademark Dove sound, nothing wrong with it, but doesn't resonate with me as much as the first 3 albums did yet. Maybe time will prove me wrong. Doves are still an exciting band and look forward to their future work.